Well, now that it has reached the late afternoon, I got a decent amount of wood splitting done. Let's finish up the Halloween reviews with a non Halloween related movie and focusing on the next holiday Thanksgiving. Never in my wildest dreams would I think this movie would ever be made. For those that need context, apparently the director of this movie, Eli Roth, he was in Glorious Bastards. If you've seen that movie, please tell me you have. If you haven't, go watch it. And he does a bunch of other, more not my cup of tea type of horror movies where they're more torture porn than anything else. They are just gory, bloody, mean. I don't like that type of stuff. This one I feel like is a little bit better. He also made The House with the Clock on Its Walls. If you've seen that, that's an okay movie. But back in the back then, Eli Roth and Quentin Tarantino made a Grindhouse movie together where they just combined different trailers of different movies, and Thanksgiving happened to be like a parody because he wanted to make a Thanksgiving related horror movie. So he made a fake trailer based on this concept. And now, this movie is that fake trailer, I'm sure you can find online, now made into a movie. And to its credit, if I'm going to be honest, even though I'm not a big fan of gore or blood or graphic kills or anything, this movie is pretty entertaining. Although I will admit the one thing I do kind of like about this movie is the fact it's not as mean as Eli Roth's other movies. I think I watched Cabin Fever, and that was one that was just really over the top. And yeah, I think it was called Cabin Fever, and that one was just really over the top, really bloody, really graphic, really gruesome. And I wasn't a big fan of it, even though a lot of people like it. It wasn't my personal favorite. This one I feel like is a little bit more accessible, even if at times a bit cheesy. Like Addison Rae, for goodness sake, is in this movie, and I don't even remember her character's name. But the movie's entertaining, and I give props for at least making a horror movie centered around Thanksgiving as a holiday, which in and of itself is pretty cool. Now, admittedly, there are some issues with this movie, particularly with some of the characters, but besides that, the story's pretty good. Similar to Final Destination, I really like the fact that all the characters are really somewhat likable in this movie. Obviously, the douchey ones will stay douchey and everything, and the more mean, cynical ones will stay, assholes, but at least most of the main characters are all very, likable in their own right. So when some of them die, you're just like, damn it, I didn't want them to die. And the story overall is just really good. There is a small twist in this movie. And there is a small twist near the end, particularly when the villain's giving his monologue near the end. I won't spoil that for obvious reasons, because overall this movie is mostly a whodunit. Kind of similar of the late 90s teen horror movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer and Scream. One of my coworkers, she wasn't a big fan of the latest I Know What You Did Last Summer, and neither was I, to be perfectly honest, but that's a review for another time. But the movie is similar. I got a lot of I Know What You Did Last Summer vibes from this movie, along with Scream, and I do like that. And on top of that, this movie feels, even though not as Thanksgiving feeling as you might think, I do love this. This is kind of a comfort movie. I know it's kind of weird to say, but this is kind of a comfort movie for me. This movie just screams Halloween's now over. You're now moving on to the more colder weather, the more winter type of weather. And you get that fall type of air. I don't know. When I was watching this movie, even in theaters, I got this warmth feeling that made me go right, now that Halloween's over, we're now moving on to Thanksgiving and Christmas and then the end of the year. And that's kind of what I enjoy about this movie. It is a very comfort level type of movie. Just a movie you can sit down with your loved ones, not your Kids, obviously, don't watch this movie with your kids. I'm not condoning that. I do not want kids being scarred for life. And, I'm not going to say, like, hey, you can snuggle up with your kids and watch this absolutely gory horror movie, but, like, a nice little date night type of movie where you can have some hot chocolate and just almost similar to a Christmas movie, but it's Thanksgiving themed. That's my personal opinion on it. Now, like I said, this movie at its core is a whodunit. And when the killer is eventually revealed, I won't spoil it for obvious reasons because I do like that mystery element to it. It is like a really good... There is like a small twist thrown in there, like I said earlier, and it's not like a big twist, but it is fairly good. I've heard there's a sequel coming out. I hope they don't make a sequel because I think that would ruin it. I think this movie is perfect just as it is. Not perfect by any means. There are still some issues in this movie. Like, I will say that some of the blood... Like, I would say there is just an uncomfortable moment with in a parade, and one of the characters, even though he's in his, typical pilgrim John Carver, who is actually a real person, by the way, in his John Carver costume, and in the trailers, it showed him as John Carver in this parade going on a rampage. And the scene is cool to an extent, but he's in this weird killer clown type costume that was more frightening than anything, and I could not help but kind of go like, well, that's clearly the killer. Who in their right mind during a family-oriented parade would be in this, even if that wasn't the killer? It's just like, how did the cops not spot this guy? How did the cops not pull him over and go like, hey, you're clearly in a clearly in a sinister costume, so we're going to take you out of this parade and question you. And yeah, he's just wandering around before eventually you do get the iconic, I'm going to call it iconic because I saw the old trailer this was based on, and it is ripped straight from the trailer. You get the iconic kill with the mascot getting decapitated, and it is kind of gnarly, kind of cool, kind of weird thing to say, kind of weird that I even said that, but you know what? It's still kind of a moment that makes me go, well, pretty gnarly kill there, dude. But overall, this movie is just a fun type of movie. And in my opinion, Halloween or not, I like the fact that it's centered around Thanksgiving. We don't get a whole lot of horror movies set during Thanksgiving, so the fact that this one is, and as good as it turned out, I'd say it's pretty cool. So anyway, give it a watch. Happy Halloween, everyone. Sorry there wasn't a whole lot of horror-related movie reviews, but like I said, I wanted to at least focus on some of the ones that I haven't talked about yet that I felt like were worth talking about. Anyway, that's about it. Take it easy, everyone. Be good people. See ya.